Hello, happy Atomic Tuesday. We've rebranded.
Yeah, we found Fridays to be too atomic-y.
Yes, awesome. We'll let everybody roll in. Looks like it's filling in here on schedule on an early Tuesday morning, late afternoon in some places.
It is early. You never go this early.
Yeah, you're East Coast, so you're like lunchtime.
Yeah, just roll right on in.
Yes.
I'm actually very thrown off by being at Tuesday and 11 o'clock. That's kind of actually messing with me mentally now that I think about it more. I gotta stop thinking about the day of the week, but
yes. All right, let's get jamming. Atomic Tuesday. This is a special edition. I'll bring everybody in. We have a lineup here. I'm just gonna click names. Let's see, John.
Hi all. Thanks for letting me join you here.
Thanks for
coming.
For joining us. Andrew.
Happy to be back again.
Yes. And then Nas, welcome. Slowly joining in there.
He's coming.
Waiting. Can you remove him?
Maybe.
Re-add him. I think his internet can be flaky. That's okay.
Hey, the benefit of a live show, right? Nothing wrong with that.
Yes. Excellent. Well, we have a really hot topic. I guess it's hot. Still hot, right? To a degree. Slash and grab. We had our intern throw this together for us. And I think it looks great.
That's awesome.
Does it embody what you guys are going after there at Huntress?
I'm feeling it. Yeah, I think it's pretty slick.
Yeah.
There
were other options.
Would your intern happen to be a Chat GPT, Dolly AI, LLM model, whatever, one way or another? Or
Maybe.
No, but he uses those.
Oh, gotcha.
Yes.
Thankfully, it didn't have a typo or like rearrange the letters or put it in, the strange AI generated spot. But hey, looking good. Yeah. I love it.
You missed the B-sides of the initial ones and the other ones we came up with. We'll have a special episode of all of the outtakes of the images. Some of them are pretty good.
Yeah, stash and gab.
What without the H?
Yes.
Somebody standing in the middle of a forest on hardwood floors. That was pretty good.
Yeah, that one. I think that one was almost my favorite.
It was until I realized that he was standing on hardwood floors in the middle of a forest. And I was like,
it had a big moon. It was great. It's
top tier.
Might have to share that later.
Yeah, we'll launch them. So like,
it's important. Yeah, probably should maybe introduce ourselves. So this is our favorite part of the show because we really don't know how to do intros. Yes, I'm Michael Haig, co-host here of Atomics on a Friday. And you may remember me from such projects as Atomic Red Team and Lull Drivers. I'll pass it over to Paul.
And you forgot like 7 more projects, but I feel like we'd be here for an hour with the amount of projects Mike's released in the past 6 months, so it's probably good to stick with the 2 primaries. I'm Paul. I'm a senior threat hunter over at Unit 42 on the managed threat hunting team. Former Atomic Red Team maintainer. I don't have 37 projects or tools like Mike does, but I'm there in spirit supporting him.
All the love.
Cool. Are we just going down the line? Should I jump in next here?
Go in.
So, hey, my name is John Hammond. I'm one of the security researchers over at Huntress. Not usually on the Atomics on a Friday on a Tuesday show, but eager and excited to be here with you all. Twitch or YouTube is a little bit of a second home. I try to put together a whole lot of cybersecurity education and videos and training on platforms just like this. So, hey, awesome and happy to be here with you all. But Andrew, I guess I could kick it over to you, my friend.
Absolutely. So Andrew Schwartz, I'm the Senior Manager of Detection Engineering at Huntress. I've done some work in the past with Charlie Clark around Kerberos. We've done some blogs on detection with Wonka Vision as well as Diamond Ticket. We also did NetSync at Texas Cyber Summit. Also done a great series with Megan Nielsen on DACL abuse and some other blogs as well. Just really excited and happy to be back here again. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all joining. And our new co-host that we've recently brought on, Naz.
Yeah. Hey. Is it working right now? Yeah, it is. Okay.
You're good.
Good. I loved how it started non-officially, then it reached John, and then everything became too official. Now I have to list my 2 projects. I mean, what else can I do? Huh? Nah, but I'm joking aside. Yeah, I give you my official name because nobody called me by that. My name is, the correct pronunciation is Nasreddine. So my name is Nasreddine. I'm a threat researcher at Nextron. I am one of the maintainers of the Sigma project and one of the maintainers of the Low Driver project. I contributed once for a T-shirt in Atomic Red Team. Now I'm going to list everything. Nah, but that's pretty much it. Yeah, I do security research and detection engineering.
In Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
we're
waiting
cutting
for
into
that.
that, so we'll speed this up.
Yeah, we got to get moving.
I gotta say, we have somebody watching from Brazil. I think it's the furthest we've actually had, so that's pretty awesome. So welcome,
That's pretty
Fabio.
cool.
It's pretty lit.
Cool.
That's
But
awesome.
the reason we're here, we should probably jump into that now.
Okay. So a little thing occurred last week, right? I wrote a timeline and it's on par. February 19th, ConnectWise ScreenConnect released an advisory on 2. At the time, they were just named CVEs 288 and 22. And I think the CVSSs on them were 10 and 84. So that dropped. And as far as I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was no active exploitation on the 19th, right? It was just, we have a problem, and that was it?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So then on the 20th, which is not on my timeline, so I'm going to skip to the 21st. The 21st, POC started dropping. We had, I think it was the Watchtower one that released first. And then it was morning time. I'm going to use mountain time. I think it was like 8 or 9 a.m., maybe 7 or 8, 9 a.m. mountain time. I started seeing active scanning. And I believe it was also the 21st, we got the actual CVEs, which is 2024-1708 and 1709. Remember what happened on the 20th? I don't know why I didn't put the 20th on here. Which would have been Tuesday.
The whole week's a blur. So.
Yes. Okay, perfect.
But you had some POCs and you had a Metasploit module committed.
Yeah, and nuclei. That's the big one that hit as well on that day, one of those days. And I think for the most part, I saw a ton of nuclei scanning the interwebs, which is very common. And then we started seeing a little bit of the Watchtower one hit as well. And then on the 22nd, we had a CISA known exploited vulnerability add to their category for active exploitation. Look at that. Thank you. And then so in the midst of all this, we have these sweet Huntress blogs get dropped, letting us know that this is happening. The first one, I believe, was on the 19th or the 20th. And then on the 21st is on the right side of the screen. And then the 23rd is on the left side of the screen because that's hard to get organized. These all started coming out. And then we have, as you scroll down on the blogs, which you can't do on this little screen, we have Sigma rules that were dropped as well. So a lot's happening. I guess kind of like John, Andrew, front lines, seeing things going down. What was like the temperature for you two? Andrew, you're like brand new over there. So that's an interesting temperature. How was it? What was happening?
It was interesting. I had a 6 o'clock in the morning training that I had to be on, and then staying up until midnight, 1 o'clock with the entire team. So we stood up a rapid response and John can talk about that a little bit more, but this was my first one. And so you're just in, Slack huddles, and you're in Zooms, and you're trying to really just work the problem. And, detection engineering, purple teaming, we survive by our POCs. So I was just really hoping that these guys could get a POC as my ultimate objective to support the team was, how can we detect this? And what are the logs? And then ultimately, perform that level of identification, figure out those artifacts, and then turn them into actionable and practical detection guidance. John?
Yeah, I can chat a little bit about sort of the rapid response process, if that's all right. Look, that's just sort of what we call it internally when we, I don't know, get everyone together and there's sort of like an Avengers Assemble moment because, hey, there's some big newsworthy internet breaking thing. Think like a print nightmare or a log4j or a Microsoft Exchange and Hafnium, blah, blah, blah. The laundry list goes on. But that's not my first rodeo. Coming Andrew's perspective, I know, hey, hot new in the seat here, but no, we've been doing this. I'm honestly, look, I guess 3.5 years over at Huntress now, but it's a blast because it really feels like we can dive into the trenches and kind of be on the front lines like you were alluding to. But there are so many different directions to run in because look, we want to get the messaging out. We want to notify folks. We want to keep people in the loop on this. We want to have actionable threat intelligence that we can validate and like make sure that we've personally tested and vetted. And we want to see, can we recreate the proof of concept? Can we understand what the adversary might be thinking and what all the indicators of compromise are? Can we use that to feed the detection engineering efforts? Can we, hey, then think on maybe, could we do some sweet stuff for a patch? Could we do mitigations? Can we help, I don't know, protect these things where people might not be up in the mix? So again, a whole lot of different places to run in, but it's really cool, I think, just to get the whole team together and hopefully some good work comes from that. I truthfully am really, I hope that all the blogs and the messaging that we got out helped arm the community to, I don't know, go up against this thing the best we all could. So thanks for showcasing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, it definitely helped, right? Because I think one of the first things I did is once the Sigma started dropping, I messaged Nas and I'm like, hey, well, is there a way on our sigconverter.io where we can like share the URL? And I think it's base 64, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so when you paste in this, when you paste in the rule, it's like extremely long when you copy the share link. And I was like, it would took up like, like a very large tweet. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. That's not going to be easy for people to notice and play with.
We didn't think it through when we implemented the feature.
Yeah.
We thought of privacy before usability, as I said. We thought of privacy, yeah. So
yes.
As long as it's private, it's good. It's still private, guys. You can use it.
Yes.
I just want to say that it was really a team effort. And Matt Anderson really took the lead on writing those Sigma rules. Really couldn't have done it without him. I was more heads down on just trying to, get the lab right, get the logs flowing, working with John to set up the auditing and all that. And then Matt really took the lead on again, crafting the Sigmas, and then, working with Nas and say, okay, do we need to tune this a little bit, or how do we get this so that it's really PR ready? And then ultimately, it's ready for prod. So it was really a team effort, really across the board, very collaborative.
That's awesome.
One of the rarest Nah, I'm joking, but it's really inspiring, by the way. Like the way you did it and the way you contributed, because like many people sometimes, like the point of contributing sometimes to Sigma is the availability to a lot of people who actually use it on their everyday use. So like Matt reaching out and contributing it to many more people is what make it really, really helpful. From my point of view, at least, yeah.
And they were great, like, rules as well. Like they weren't just very broad. Like these were actionable to be deployed right now, which I thought was very powerful.
Yep.
Yeah, that's always the challenge, right? Of, depth versus breadth, precise versus behavioral, all the debates that we engage on InfoSec Twitter. But the most important thing I think was just trying to get it out there and to be that, we all, we can have a differencing of opinions, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, I think all of our hearts are in the right places. We all have the right level of intent is to better the community, better these customers, help protect them, and make everyone, keep everyone safe, really. So we just wanted to get something out there that was able to be used by the community. And it is okay if it needs to be tuned by the community. We want to know what works, what doesn't work. And that's why it was great to see a lot of the work that was released on the post-exploitation in the wild IOCs and artifacts, to get those out to the community as well, because maybe there were things that we did not have a chance to really initially craft in terms of Sigma rules, and that other people can look at it and say, oh yeah, I can quickly write that one up. So it's always about, working together in that collaborative nature.
There we go. Mute buttons are hard. No, I think especially when these public ones drop and you're seeing more of the POCs and scanning activity before defenders get the chance to understand what's occurring and figure out even just getting your footing, so to speak, is really difficult, especially when you don't know potentially what occurs afterwards, right? So I think having these Sigma rules was great. And so what I'd like to do is we could just jump into kind of just talking about the two that were initially created, and then we can kind of talk about some of the activity from the other blog about some of the post-exploitation activity. So I don't know if looks like, John, you posted these rules, so maybe we'll punt to you for the first one. Kind of talk through like what occurs where how this rule is relevant to the activity of trying to identify it. Like, kind of walk us through if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, thanks so much. And again, hey, let me shine the spotlight, credit where credit is due. This is Matt Anderson, one of the rock star detection engineers over at Huntress. I was just the one, in a frenzy up at 3 a.m. trying to get the blog post out and all. But I slapped this on Gist so that we can get it as fast as we can, and then kept cruising. But look, the Sigma rule here is candidly simple, and I think, look, there's just one indicator of compromise that kind of checks the box for understanding how the exploit and attack works, and really, hey, the mitigation things that we might have to dig into if we talk about all that. But look, it's basically, if you've got access to it, the IIS access logs, the web server there, and you'll note we're going to some specific URL, setupwizard.aspx, and that is how you would normally naturally set up or configure a new, fresh installation of ScreenConnect when you're setting it up for the first time. The gimmick is that if you were to simply add a / or sort of trick a little bit of the path and file info that you're navigating to, then whoops, everything falls off, the wheels break off the car, and it allows you to reconfigure it without any authentication, which will grant an attacker, sure, the easy ability to add their new administrator user and then just do whatever they want in their newly owned ScreenConnect server. But this is odd because, look, there isn't any process events or new created things. Hey, other stuff happened on the system. You just go to a web page. So we really had to harp in on, okay, can we drill down into the web server logs and use that as our indicator? And then it's just the URL. It's just anything you could change in the address bar. So that's why we were a little bit delicate in the conversation. But now, after the POC was released and there were exploitations in the wild, we could really showcase this is the smoking gun. Setupwizard.aspx /.
Something to point out here is that, which is hats off to you, is in the blog, many people miss it sometimes, but the fact that you provided like screenshots of how the log actually looks like is really important, even from a Yara perspective. Because in Yara, sometimes people say, okay, it's a string, it can be bypassed, but it's really important, especially if you do like triage in log and masses. Sometimes you don't collect those IIS log, but you can scan them via Yara, via multiple tools. And the fact that you provided the actual log and how it looks like, it's super helpful, even sometimes without even running the POC. Like, I don't even need to run it. You could have not released the POC and I would have had the detection. You see what I mean? Like, it's super powerful that you provided that, even like, it was very helpful. Amazing work.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes just a simple thing like this is all you need to kickstart everything. But the other interesting one, which I'm going to point to Andrew for this one, since he is the Sackle master here, which rightfully so, you did call out in the blog that you do need to actually do some additional things in order to generate those logs. So we're looking at specifically event log 4663, which was needs to be attempted object access occurred. So walk us through, like, first, what is this looking for, and then maybe what the process is to actually create a Sackle for those who may have never actually created one or even know where to start with those.
Yeah, and I always confuse ace, sackle, and dackle. There's always and the languages. It's there's Jared Atkinson has done a lot there. If you want to read up on it, but generally what we want to do is with these logs, or sorry, with this attacks, is we have an idea or hypothesis that something is being modified or something is being dropped. And so my first inclination, and generally my go-to in these sort of instances, is say, okay, let's enable the auditing and let's set a Sackle. So the Sackle helps create the auditing rule of the 4663 to generate, if something's being modified, deleted, basically everything on where the activity is taking place in a high level nutshell, right? So we knew that something was being dropped, something was being modified as we ran this several times. And that's generally our process, is to do this rinse and repeat over and over and over. So we saw this XML file that was happening. And so once we got the Sackle set, it really came together with the other rule that you had the object name of temp and ScreenConnect and the ScreenConnect service being in there, and that file being modified, dropped, etc., basically being touched, right? And that's what was very unusual, is that we didn't see that activity happening elsewhere, but really in that instance. And so we just added, the access mass and object type just to get a little bit more precise in that way, just for a little bit more of tuning.
So maybe to clarify, what is the access mass? What's the role of that here in particular, since we are specifying it?
Right. So I always get a little confused here, and I sometimes have to ping Johnny Johnson on the side. But really, that's the writes that's happening, right? So is it doing what is actually happening? Is it in this case, I believe it was a write data and it was an append, if I'm correct. Is that how that translated out to? But generally, we've seen this used in other instances. If you're familiar with access max, with Mimikatz or dumping of LSASS, the most common one, the 0x1FFFFF, where all the accesses are being performed, or you see the 1410 or whatnot. So you can have a variety of different writes, right? Read process memory or whatever the case may be. That's what they translate to, is that number at a very high level nutshell again. But it was, in this case, if I'm correct, I'd have to go back. It was the write data and it was the append, and that was what was happening to the file.
Awesome.
And,
now,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and just to set that up, what we wanted to do was provide a screenshot, and so I think that's in the detection post. Not in, I think not in this one. There was a second post that came out that was just purely on detection, and that shows you how to set the Sackle when you right click on the file. Or no, that's the ConnectWise. Let me see if I can. If you go back to the main page, by any chance, the Huntress page, it was, yep, and then down below, go all the way down to the bottom. Let's see, detection guidance, that one. So this post, right, was the second post that was put out. And so here we notice, we saw Procmon, right, and then this is where you set the Sackle. So you right click we right clicked basically on the directory. That was where the activity was taking place, and we want to modify the advanced security settings. So we went over to auditing, because that's the world generally I live in, is the telemetry world and the detection engineering side, versus the access controls and all that. But we went into auditing, and we decided to do is set that just to create that, because it didn't exist. Now, I did set it for success and full control. And so that was probably maybe a little bit too granular, but I wanted, in this case, I didn't know what was, I needed everything, right? I'd rather have everything and then whittle it down versus not having anything. So I set it for the most. And that's what led to the creation of this log, where an attempt was made to access an object. And as you can see, yep, I was right. So write data and append data, which is a 0x6.
Super, super helpful. Going back to what you mentioned earlier with you and Megan's blog on DACLs and going into this is really great to understand, especially because I don't think a lot of people are effectively doing this type of granularity or even knowing where to start with these, especially when you drop them. So this is great to see, especially the visualization to not only how to set it, but also like what may the log look like at the end of it. And so especially when you're sending this data into like a Splunk or some other sim, you don't necessarily always see it in this nice, pretty format. You have to kind of do some magic on the back end to see that data.
Right, and these events they can be very noisy. Like I live in a world of realism that someone is paying for something, right? So data costs money, unfortunately. But you can be a little bit granular. So that was kind of also one of the main things behind the blog series I did with Megan at Trusted Sec was, okay, if these are all the DACL attacks of modified in Active Directory, instead of auditing everything, let's try to go through and pick, 20 different attributes and be specific on those. And then you could set it just for those level of attributes. In this case, you can do the same thing. The same level of methodology applies. I carried it over where we're setting it on the directory of the directory in this case for SecurConnect.
Now, maybe a clarifying question. Does this get applied to all subdirects? So in this case, it does apply, but you could say, if you were only looking for, let's say you really want to be super granular, you could specify that primary directory of where that specific XML file is going to live, right? Or on that particular XML file.
I believe someone would have to, I'm sure I'll be corrected.
Yes.
But yeah.
By default, they are inherited, but you can disable inheritance and do it on a specific file or in a specific directory. By default, I believe in Windows, every permission is inherited by its subdirectories. So don't go crazy because you will flood yourself.
Just set one on the root of C and call it a day. GPO everything. Just kidding. Don't send me your Splunk bills. I don't want them. Maybe somebody at Splunk can help us out. Mike, do you know anybody?
Yeah, you disable inheritance.
Classic.
Nice.
All right. So this kind of got the ball rolling, kind of got at least some footing before things started to occur. But then you all came out with, I think, this is blog number 3 now, talking about some of the post-exploitation side of things that you all saw. Is that where we're up to now? It's blog 3?
I think so.
I'm trying to track because the first one was the initial messaging. The detection guidance was number 2. And then the recreation of the proof of concept and some more of the tactical details with Sigma rules was number 3. So maybe even, post-exploitation is 4. And then, my goodness, if we wanted to really beat the dead horse here, 5, we just put out sort of a non-technical explanation for a lot of business owners or administrators that, hey, might just want the gist and the TLDR. But look, we've really just been trying to get that detail out for everyone and all walks of experience and all. But I am most impressed by this blog on post-exploitation. And this is coming from a whole lot of the UK and United Kingdom and Australia analysts, some folks across the pond from Huntress SOC. While we were all trying to get some shut-eye, hey, they put together this behemoth, this beast of a write-up on everything that we've been seeing for tradecraft and how threat actors are using and abusing this. So I'd love to chat about this one.
Yeah, I went through it this morning. I think I went through it twice just because every time there is something else, even like the smallest little thing, just seeing it. But a lot of it we've seen in previous other attacks. So some of the things, if we're thinking about it from like a detection standpoint, are looking at like what our existing rule sets are or analytics. Some of them hopefully already have some coverage, but I still think there's a lot of gold. I gotta say, some of the interesting ones were, I think Mike created some atomic tests that kind of map to some of these, but we'll kind of just jump into a few of them. Is there any specific ones that you found interesting? Obviously, I think there's like 3 or 4 that stuck out to me, but anybody have anything they want to touch on initially?
I mean, I think the neatest one that I pulled out was the username check-in one, which I think is the second or third one down here. Yeah, user adversary enumerating, which I thought was really cool. It's clever to go in and just like pop machines and just have them check in for usernames. Just like, what permissions do I have out here? That's pretty awesome. Which is the one I did recreate, which we can show in a little bit here.
Yeah, I think that one's going back to Mockman, which we've used many times before as part of the atomic test. But this one's interesting, again, in seeing kind of the lineage. And if we follow through even some of these, we're kind of seeing the same grandparent, parent, child process execution, right? Which is ScreenConnect and then CMD or PowerShell and then the thing. So at least the consistency aspect is there.
Just to add a little bit more clarity on this one specifically, you'll notice one of the parent processes is from the ScreenConnect client service. Well, all the vulnerabilities we've been chatting about are from the server itself, but this tradecraft specifically is, hey, the instance is compromised, the server is beaten up, off bypassed, RCE'd, but then that capability is kind of taken advantage of to push down that malicious code to all other connected clients and endpoints. Because the server is going to run as entity authority system. They don't need to know what username they are. They're already God. But when it funnels down to the downstream connected computers, that could be Joe Schmo, that could be John, that could be admin, that could be whatever user. So that is why they fanned that out with that PowerShell trick, as you mentioned, through some HTTP server and try to collect and enumerate, hey, what access do I even have? Where are my high value targets and what I should prioritize with further wreaking havoc and, compromise, etc. So that is pretty wild. We all thought that was neat and worth a little eyebrow raise.
And it wouldn't be a breach or an incident without some form of a miner being dropped or abused in some capacity. I swear, anytime something like this drops, especially on Linux, the first thing that's probably always seen, crypto miners. Is it even still? Can you still make money by just popping mass things? And like, you
can.
Has anybody tracked the amount from that?
I haven't done it personally. I guess I don't know the ROI.
Like, thinking about it, like, it has to run for quite a bit. It has to generate like a good amount of do a lot of computations in order to be effective. I don't know. I guess I still don't see what's the ROI.
There is value, but probably you will track it down in users, not companies, most of the time, because most of the users are infected with video games, cracked software, and you can see it. So
now, I think one of my favorites that I saw, I shouldn't say favorites, but one of the more interesting was the tunneling of RDP. I think this one was really interesting to see. I don't know if anybody all dug into it or have some additional insight into it, but just seeing them leverage to create that tunnel and that reverse shell back, even though they already have the access. So I'm curious as to what other people think of the logic or why do it this way. Is it just to get the additional access? Is it to now I can RDP so I can have my friendly GUI because, I'm not lead enough to use the terminal as much for it? Like, what's the logic here?
I'm happy to let anyone else chime in. But in my mind, hey, that's the back door. That's their implant. That's their foothold. So on the off chance that the victim, the target, gets smart on this and then goes to patch, well, then you can't use that same vulnerability to kind of break your way through the door. So having the Cobalt Strike beacon or the SSH or the reverse shell or the tunnel or whatever RDP they might be able to use, that still keeps a little bit of persistence for them. The one that blows my mind, if you scroll down quite a bit, the Google Chrome remote desktop just above. I saw everyone's kind of screaming about this on Twitter, and I thought it was the coolest thing, because I'll be the first to admit, I've never heard of that either. I didn't know that Google Chrome could be used for a remote desktop protocol, but we saw a whole lot of offensive security professionals and red teamers say, dang it, they burned my tradecraft.
This one was my favorite because
Yeah.
suddenly I heard the tears of 1,000 red teamers just cry. So sorry to my red team friends. I do love you, but this one was actually very, very interesting. And it also caught my eye as well. And really hats off to our SOC, really putting all this together and getting all this tradecraft, because I was totally asleep and I woke up and they go, here you go. Here's, 60 pages of just, attribution, tradecraft, TTPs for you. But I mean, John or Naz, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit more into this technique, and just give a little background. It's still, I'm still digging into it. I think there's a little bit you can still pull on in terms of maybe some additional Sigma rules as well.
I can't speak too much about it now. I'm still working on it. So. It's coming. But I just wanted to highlight one thing, which is even though you'll notice that they use the window, like the Google Chrome RDP thingy or whatever, but you'll still notice some like classical tradecraft, which is invoke expression or something like that. Like even you reach the moment when, even if you don't know about the Google Chrome desktop, you can still track this suspicious thingy. Of course, this is like going on the edge cases between legitimate crazy administrator and malicious things. But if you scroll down the whole blog, like this gives you hope / a wake-up call, which is like sometimes, even though the CVE was very trivial and you might have made some mistakes, there is one with the transfer.sh. I think we've seen that 1,700 times. There is no reason that you let these like websites open or without monitoring. But you can see that like it's a general idea with some flavors in it. Like it's PowerShell but transfer.sh. It's curl but with something else. And that's what, for example, why when I was going through this report at night, I was like, oh, this is nice. I don't have to write so many rows, but that was like, this is not, because most of it is like traditional, but with some flavors that helps you like enhance your detection engineering capabilities. And I believe Matt even mentioned that, which is like, yeah, this is not something completely new, but it's something that we know. This is a chance that we can improve our Sigma rules, our detections, but it's something we can detect. On the other hand, something very interesting here is that I believe we didn't explain it yet, but you see this chain between ScreenConnect, the services, CMD, or whatever, and you might, and I made the mistake, which is I thought that this would be good enough, but this is the traditional, how do you say, traditional way of sending legitimate requests through ScreenConnect. So if you usually use this is how it would look like. And the CMD portion, I believe in the first screenshot, there was like the command line being passed to cmd/c, something ending with run.cmd. That file, run.cmd, if you look at it, it's an encoded PowerShell basic C4 thing. If you look at it, you'll say it's malicious, by the way. but it's not. And the fact that you need sometimes to balance, just, yeah, I believe this is it somewhere. You can find it somewhere. Not the next one, the next one. The one after that. I'm just now lying. Like, where is it? Yeah, somewhere around here. It's shown, believe me, but trust me, bro, like they say. But the idea here is very interesting because this is the typical workflow of ScreenConnect. So if you usually use it, when you look at this workflow, you'll see previous logs and new logs, and you might not know exactly if you've been compromised or this is like a typical administrator scheduled task or something. So finding the balance was super interesting from a detection point of view.
Yeah, and I just want to say is the way it came together is and building on what Nas just said, but the way this all came together and this post lays it out is some of these might be brittle or very simple rules, but then you have some maybe that might be a little bit more behavioral or quote unquote advanced, like setting the sockle in the 4663. When they're all together, it really paints the picture. And this is detection layering, and what I believe is detection layering, where we can have good rules, layer one stuff to catch the low-hanging fruit, and then build on top of that to have really defense in depth. We always talk about defense in depth in terms of our controls. You got to have, application allow listing. You have to have LSA as a protected process, or LSS as a protected process. ARSR rules, or network segmentation, blah, 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 blah. But having defense in depth with your detections is another win. That way, you can really get a picture and ultimately, hopefully, of attribution of what's happening by, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 go off. Oh man, that really raises the anomalous that something bad is really happening altogether. It really paints that picture and drives context, which we can then hand to our SOC or IR friends and saying, well, look, this is something you might want to consider for investigation, for triage, for containment, remediation.
Yeah, and I think that's important because, yes, there are opportunities that we can go deeper as far as from a detection standpoint, but sometimes do we need to, right? And I think there's a balance in that of, we talk about whether it's brittle, whether it's behavioral, right? And that kind of realm, it's difficult sometimes, right? When you think about internal security teams and their opportunities or the time they can invest into that versus somebody like sitting on the vendor side, right? There's different opportunities and different ways to approach it. And at the end of the day, the real answer is, who cares if you win, right? Like if you detect it and you stop the threat and you respond to it effectively, it doesn't matter how you caught it or how brittle or not brittle that detection is or the analytic is, you still won, right? At least in that particular case. But what I come back to is I always look for the commonalities, right? What are the things that are always repeating? And in this case, our old friend NET and NL test and all of these goodies that you read any DFIR report or any other public report, there's always these commands in here and they're always there. But what I found interesting is this to me was new. I don't think I've actually seen the addition of a newly created account into things like the schema admins or particularly the enterprise admins. Generally, it's throw me in the domain admins and I win. But some of these, like I've seen some remote desktop, but specifically enterprise admins, the group policy creators, and the schema admins were new to see. At least I haven't seen them previously in some of the reports that I've read in the past. So I found that extremely interesting from that perspective.
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great catch. That's a great shout out. Just goes further to doing a level of auditing beyond the standard domain admins, enterprise admins. Here you see also remote desktop users, but going on to some of those other ones that are also very, very notorious, very dangerous in terms of if you are able to get into those groups, the damage, severe damage could happen and also impact.
And one thing I want to add, which is probably not very known, which is these groups are localized. So when you do this on an English machine, it's like this. On a Brazilian machine, it's very different. So yeah, it's brittle, blah, blah, blah. You can detect it via other means when somebody adds it to the group because the SID is known. And that is the better way, of course, to detect it via the SID. But if you're going for the net group, remember that many things are localized. For example, if you go to the remote desktop users, in French is something else. So yeah, that's something to keep an eye for. Because if you're, how do you say, many of the detections, sometimes we tailor them to US-based or English-based. But if you're in Japan, for example, or I don't know, you have a very different localization. Russian, for example, that would be different for you. So that's all. And this goes even for users, for the ones who doesn't know. And like anti-authority system isn't anti-authority system on all machines. Like, of course, the SID is the same, but that's something to keep in mind if you're using this kind of level of detections, like command line based.
And that's the great call out. I actually came across for the first time some different Windows event logs that were not English based, and it threw me through a loop. And I'm like, what do I do now? Like, okay,
Yeah.
I can use the event IDs, which is what got me here. But now it's like, okay, how do I factor these in? And then how do I scale it to things like other languages, right? Because you talked about NT authority. I was doing some stuff from Andrew's blog on the Dackles, and I came across some things that were not just pure NT authority, right? They had the nice characters of, from variants of the language that I'm like, how do I account for this at scale? Because in some cases, when you have an organization, right, you have enterprises that are not just US based or English based, but they're global presence and have different users with different language packs installed on the system. And those logs are not always the same. So it created an interesting problem. So that's a great perspective.
And also,
one thing,
by the way, just wanted to mention this. If you want to know which logs are probably localized, there is a trick. Is that in ETW, when you see the date, if the ETW isn't, how do you say, isn't like described, doesn't have a template basically. So you see sometimes in PowerShell, you see that process, like in 4688, let's take it. There is the process creation, something, there is username, blah, blah, blah. Those are templated in the XML. So there is an equivalent template for that. But sometimes you'll come across an event with just data. When you do the XML view, it's just data. That data, many times, it's localized because the data is a message generated from the DLL that's hosting that thing. So example, PowerShell, the script, not the script block, but the default engine PowerShell is localized because it's not templated, so it can trick you. Which is interesting.
I think that's also a good point, is that, while the process command line and, process activity is important, it also shows that using things like Windows event logs, right? Assume that I have the ScreenConnect agent deployed on an endpoint that doesn't have my EDR agent. How would I then detect that activity, right? That things like going to the domain controllers and collecting event logs off of there, which then doing things like targeting those specific groups, the RDP users, the schema admins, domain admins, group policy editors, etc. And using those as well is important, right? And that kind of goes back to what Andrew was saying, which is, stacking your detections and kind of having some overlaying of, yes, can I detect the same activity, but in different means in case something like an unmonitored agent, which that happens way more frequently than people realize. Like, we've been dealing with this for years in incident response of, oh, that thing didn't have an agent. There's no visibility, right? Or edge devices is the perfect example. You don't have an agent on the edge device, doesn't mean you can't still use other data sources and opportunities to detect that activity from those unmonitored assets. But no, this is a lot of great stuff here.
Atomic Friday episode.
But it wouldn't be Atomics without some Atomics. And I know Mike has taken a lot of the things from this particular blog and actually created a nice chain reaction so you can go detect your analytics and data coverage.
Yep. Yeah,
It's
going
other
into
37 projects that Mike has.
yeah, going into this, seeing all the sigmas, I was like, got to be able to test these things. Like, how do we know, right? And so I obviously
I know.
test not all of them. Yeah, I got all these great things from Nas. By the way, I wanted to at least share the one little slide I made. No, yes, I love that meme. I was just laughing about it again. I shared the link as well. But yeah, so want to at least share that. There's all the content that we see from Huntress is in Sigma and vice versa. Like, there's so much great content out there. I want to at least try to show off some quick atomics. There is a VM right here. Cool. And yep. And so you should hopefully see this. Yay. I took one from the Huntress blog and I pasted it into our sigconverter.io site here. And it instantly converts it to, let's say, Splunk. You can change it to all these other ones. I don't know which one's actually, okay, maybe that one is not a good choice. I saw a Loki one in here. I thought that was kind of neat. I've never used Loki. And there's a carbon black. So options, sigconverter.io. And so, yeah, so Atomic Red Team, we had a couple of the things, and a couple of things from the Huntress blog were in the Atomic Red Team test already. The only thing I did differently, let me bring over the gist. Paul, you may have those links. Yes, stay for the Atomics. Let me find the link real quick. I made two things. So first I made a YAML file, and this YAML file is just all of the atomics that I made, and I'll drop it into the chat. Some of these are brand new, so if you are looking to contribute to Atomic Red Team, the easiest thing you can do is copy the test, put it in the appropriate T number, technique number, and get yourself some swag if you're a first-time contributor. And so, simple enough. Thankfully, the content produced by Huntress in that blog, pretty much copy paste, and you can just drop them in. So adding all the logical disks to the Windows Defender exclusion list, just literally drop it in there, run it under the PowerShell context. We had a certutil test in there. So if you want to try a URL cache or a couple of the other different variations, those are there too. I modified this one to use an MSI, just like what was seen in the blog. And so I also named it the my utility MP, named it the same thing as the blog. So you could like try to mimic your adversary and whatnot, clearing logs and whatnot. All those are in here. We mentioned the client services one, spawning that PowerShell invoke request, hitting that URL. I put in a default URL. I highly recommend creating your own, but if you want to play with it,
no, just use that one.
Just yes,
please don't change it. Just use that.
Yeah, just don't run this on your domain controller.
Run it on the domain controller.
I got all the way down to the setting up putty for SSH tunnels. I don't know if this one works, but if you run it, please let me know from your domain controller. I did add, now we talked about the Chrome remote desktop. So I did add that in here. It works. So if you do this one, please send me your username and password. Just kidding. Don't do that. But, or maybe, why not? Yeah, you can play with that. That's a fresh one. So if you want to get like onto the email list from Atomics, from Red Canary saying, hey, this is a sweet test, that's probably the one to go after. And then I dropped in all of those net ones that were shared in the blog too. And because we try to be thorough in our atomic testing, there's another gist. I gotta find the link. There's links everywhere here. If you're looking to just smash and grab, I created another one, or I should say SlashAndGrab. You can just get this PS1 and just run it, and it'll just run everything all at once. Or you can just take down this YAML and run it as well. So real quick, or
you could pop your own ScreenConnect server and deploy that PowerShell script via the compromised ScreenConnect, and really test your defenses and send your IR team into overdrive.
Yeah, exactly. Overdriven IR teams.
Mike over here just creating like automated work for the adversaries now. Like just take all the work instead of manually typing it, just create a script to do it all for them.
Yeah, what's going on, Mike?
Hey,
which side are you on, Mike?
Hey. I'm on.
Never agreed.
I'm on the sides. We've gone into before how to install invoke atomic test. In this particular case, I created a new directory called T1052, which I don't even know what that T number is. I just made it up. It's probably something like fighting fish or something. I added, as you can see, this is everything that you see in that YAML on the gist. And to make life easy, you can do show details or brief. Details will give us each of the tests kind of printed out like that, which is super cool. The ones that need cleanup do have the cleanup commands. So you could just hit T1052, SlashAndGrab, all of them. It'll go through. My server doesn't like the MP preference. If you run it on Windows 11 or something with AV, that should work fine. But otherwise, your certutil, it does move it within the test. You'll see that in the file. It does that check-in to that mockbin site, and then it also creates that scheduled task, and it will try this putty thing, but it's going to fail because the example.com APT adversary controlled domain is not real. There it is, because we don't example.com. Oh, hey, there's that Chrome remote desktop. which would be like the 8th time it's been installed, but it doesn't complain. And then, yeah, here's all your users and whatnot being dropped in there. So, yeah, if you want to test all that great coverage that you just employed, that you have seen from all of this, and yeah, you can. So remember, those are fresh atomics. We will tweet those, put them in the socials. People can copy paste, get some swag, and yeah, let us know how it goes.
Totally
Awesome.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Looks very good.
Biggest thing, I just want to say thank you all for joining. John, Andrew, Nas, appreciate it. Andrew for putting this together. Thank you for giving Atomics on a Friday, on a Tuesday, a kick. Really,
It's
really
Tuesday, not
appreciate it.
Wednesday.
Yes.
Don't listen to whoever sent that message.
Yes. But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you everybody for joining. We got to plug this as well. But
It's coming back. It starts
yes.
Friday.
Starts Friday.
Actual Friday, not Wednesday, like today.
Yeah.
OST bracket coming soon.
Yes. I think
Pure
yeah.
popularity contest. I don't care what your favorite C2 is, but go vote for it. Make sure it wins. We're not doing anything technical analysis. It's pure popularity because that's how we run InfoSec.
Yes.
Alrighty,
Yeah.
everyone. I know we're getting
y'all.
closer to the top of the hour, but this was a blast. Thank you all so much. And I got a dash, but I'll tune into you next time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks,
you all.
y'all.
Thanks.
Everybody have a great week. We'll see you again Friday for Purple Madness.
Purple Madness. Let's
and
go.
yeah. Oh yeah, we got our OST. Okay. But yes, thank you all. We're gonna cut it. Have a great week. We'll see you soon.
Yeah.